CERB Overpayment or CERB Repayment is a fraud. 2.5 years after the government issued Canada Emergency Response Benefits or CERB to those who were placed out of work because the entire country was placed under a lockdown, they received a notice of debt. Not all CERB recipients received the notice of debt. There may be 650,000 people received this notice of debt. Even those who did not apply for the CERB received this notice of debt. This notice of debt is, however, a fraud. Yes, it is a fraud, but the recipients did not know it is a fraud. They took it to the media. The media did not even know that it is a fraud. I'm one of the recipients of this notice of debt. I know it is a fraud, so I just ignore it. The people who made this notice of debt have made it their normal practice or their way of living by defrauding people using the government's name. It is an easy way of making money, making a lot of money, making millions by defrauding their fellow citizens and claiming they are the government. These people are actually people who used to work at the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, the most corrupt department among all federal departments and agencies. When the government started with privatization in the early 1980s, radically, these people came into the government through the political parties. They helped the politicians with canvassing, raising money, doing administrative errands, and the political campaign. Once the politicians they helped were elected, they were quickly given the job at the government. At the department, they were never trained to serve the citizens like the public servants do. Rather, their job, as they believe, was simply serve the politicians, who they consider as masters, political masters, and raising money for the political parties. They never went through the security clearance either. You know that when you work in the government, you have to go through different levels of security clearance. It depends on what level of positions you will have. There are about 4 levels of security clearance. I had to go through the 4 levels of security clearance. It is a very tough process to go through, but these people never went through this process. They were exempted. All political staffs and political appointees are exempted from security clearance. The politicians don't even have the security clearance. When they come from a dark background, they cast their dark shadow everywhere they go. They cast their dark shadow in the government, and now they are casting their dark shadow outside in the society. The saying is, once a thief, always a thief. As the privatization becomes the government normal practice, these people, using their positions, started engineering fraud. They started by stealing a portion of people's pensions, compensations, benefits, employment insurance, social assistance, and other kinds of benefits without people's knowledge. What people know is that their entitlements, employment insurance, pensions, compensations, and all benefits that due to them are becoming less. They wonder why the cost of living has steadily increased, but their pensions, employment insurance, benefits, and all are declining. People do not know, and even until today, that these thieves have creamed off their entitlements until today. Then they hire the bank managers to transfer the money to their offshore accounts. You know that the politicians are not supposed to leave the country on a business trip. Because if they do, they bring into the country crisis of any kinds. In foreign countries, the countries where they go or the countries where they went, they cause conflicts, economic, social, and political conflicts, and even wars. If you notice, Canada has never been at peace ever since the politicians travel around the world carrying business personalities to negotiate trades. Also, when they travel, when they leave the country, they open bank accounts in foreign countries to hide the money they steal from the taxpayers, from you. They open bank accounts in foreign countries also to hide the fee they receive from the companies or their political cronies when the trade deals were successful. They become salesperson of their private cronies, political cronies. When the politicians travel, they carry with them their spouse and children, family members, including friends and nannies. The most are the political staffs, and whether it is a travel within or outside the country, they put all the expenses on the public account. You, the taxpayers, pay all their expenses. All their hospitality, transportation, and entertainment are paid by you, the taxpayers. They do not even pay the expenses with their own salary. Justin Trudeau, for example, his groceries are paid by taxpayers, not from his own salary. When they join the Pop and Soda Club, you, the taxpayers, pay for their membership dues. Imagine you pay millions a year on membership dues for the politicians to become members of the Pop and Soda Clubs, such as the WEF, the World Economic Forum, the Bilderberger, the Illuminati, the Fellowship, and the other clubs. Don't you know that you, the Canadian taxpayers, spend $800 million a year to pay the WEF, the World Economic Forum, whose chairman is Klaus Schwab, the person who wants to reset your country's economy, reset your nation, reset your entire life, your body, mind, and soul. The person who wants to reset your finances, the person who made the announcement in October 2016 that every person will be injected with a quantum dot microneedle vaccination delivery system of the mark of the beast. The person who wants to take all your properties and let you own nothing but be happy. The person who wants you to eat bugs, insects, and rats. Stop doing laundry often to preserve the environment. The person who wants your body fully transparent, that he can see everything inside you, and be a computer that he, as his advisor Noah Harari said, can be hacked. The person who calls you useless eaters or animals, but receives 800 millions annually from you, the Canadian taxpayers. Does he worth this much? Imagine his wealth if he receives the same amount of money from every country that is a member of his club, the World Economic Forum. You also pay millions a year for the politicians to attend meetings of the Pop and Soda Clubs, but do not have the time to meet with the citizens. That costs zero. Taking a portion of your entitlement is a crime. It is a theft. Crimming of fellow citizens' entitlement is a crime, a white-collar crime. These people are thieves. They are fraudsters. They are white-collar criminals. The year when the government started with privatization, it was also the year when money laundering practice started. All these people, including the politicians and businesses, have their money stashed in offshore accounts to avoid taxes, and you, the taxpayers, cannot see that they become millionaires at your expenses. These crooked people who worked at the former Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada are the ones who designed this notice of debt and have their customer service, the Ottawa Technology Center, send it to you. As I said, once a thief, always a thief. They are defrauding you in a broad daylight. After all, they know that no one can do anything about them because they are the government. This is why you are wrong. Yes, you are very, very, very wrong. These people are not the government. They are, on the contrary, former government officials who got the job in the government through the political parties. They are a bunch of crooked people. They are a bunch of thieves. They are a bunch of fraudsters. They are a bunch of robbers who stole the positions from the public servants with the help of the elected officials. Some of them are failed politicians, people who failed during the political election. Some are political staffs or political aides. Some are former politicians. They were politicians for 1 or 2 years and then quit politics. After quitting politics, they took the job of the public servants, people who took an oath to serve the citizens. They took the job from the public servants. When they sent you a notice of pension overpayment or benefit overpayment, which people started receiving in 2015, they usually use the name Canada Revenue Agency. After being reprimanded, they use the name Employment and Social Development Canada. For your information, Employment and Social Development Canada is a phantom organization. A phantom organization means an organization that does not exist physically but only on paper. That means you are communicating with a ghost organization. You do not communicate with or reply to an organization that does not exist. It is a fraud. I am, as I said, one of the recipients of this notice of debt. I know that this is a fraud and I just ignore it. Many do believe it and paid these people. They never realize that they give their banking information to the fraudsters. These fraudsters laughed and said, "Thank you very much." The next thing they did was making a direct withdrawal, not only once, but multiple times without the owner's knowledge and consent. They may say in the record that their withdrawal is for the Canada Revenue Agency or simply Employment and Social Development Canada. After all, you do not know that this organization does not exist. It is a fraud, and you are being fraud. If you want to know more about this phantom organization and the people who designed this notice of debt, buy this book, Canada's White-Collar Crimes, Political, Financial, and Corporate Crimes. This book tells you who these people are, what they are, how they created Employment and Social Development Canada, and for what purpose. Just for a summary, Employment and Social Development Canada was created in 2015 in name only, not physically. This is the year when Justin Trudeau rebranded the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada to become the Department of Family, Children, and Social Development Canada. After the rebranding, these corrupt officials then moved to Service Canada as contractors. When they moved to Service Canada as contractors, they took with them the external hard drive from the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada. The hard drive contains the information of 650,000 student loan borrowers whose identities they used to take student loan fraudulently. After they moved to Service Canada, they hired the Ottawa Technology Center as their customer service to send collection statements and make direct calls to the 650,000 students radically and aggressively. The students whose identities they used to take student loan fraudulently. And they use the name Canada Revenue Agency. Sometimes they use the name Total Credit Recovery or Employment and Social Development Canada. Sometimes they use the name Ontario Ministry of Finance. And why they use the name Canada Revenue Agency? Because they know that people are afraid of the name Canada Revenue Agency. People or the former students, the 650,000 students who received the constant collection statements and constant harassment of telephone calls do not know that the Canada Revenue Agency does not have the legal authority to collect student loan. It is illegal. The lawyers do not even know that the CRA cannot and does not have the legal authority to collect student loan. Therefore, they don't want to help the students. However, using the name Canada Revenue Agency, they have managed to collect from the innocent students, garnish their wages and all. Those who send the collection letters, collection statements, and even the garnishment letters to the employers of the former students are the customer service, the Ottawa Technology Center. All these letters were designed by these corrupt former government officials. This is a white-collar crime. This is a crime that even the police are not trained for. It is very interesting. Yes, it is very interesting. The RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, used to be trained by Anastasia Toussaint, a customer service agent of the Ottawa Technology Center, but claims she is an official of the Employment and Social Development Canada, an organization that does not exist. How in the world she got the job as the training coordinator or the trainer of the RCMP while the company she worked for does not exist? This means that you can work at the RCMP without security clearance. How in the world a person, a customer service agent whose job is making student loan collection illegally and by lying to the students, sending them fraudulent collection statements, fraudulent collection letters, making direct calls, harassing the students, and force the students to pay the fraudsters, is able to secure a position as an RCMP trainer. The RCMP was trained by a customer service agent who worked at a ghost organization or a phantom organization, an organization that does not exist. And her daily job is to manipulate, deceive, rob, or fraud, lie, and deny constantly, and send fraudulent collection letters to the innocent student. She forced the students to pay the fraudsters. She is a fraudster. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police was trained by a fraudster. Go figure. Get this book, Canada's White-Collar Crimes, Political, Financial, and Corporate Crimes. Go to the Amazon.ca, Amazon.com, or the other Amazon websites and purchase this book. You can also read the introductions at carolinecovel.com. You will be amazed how for many years they have defrauded you without you knowing it. Read this book and you'll find the answer. These people must be stopped. They are fraudsters, they are robbers, they are thieves, They are white-collar criminals. They are not the government. They are former government officials. They are former corrupt government officials. And they are not even working in the government. They are not the government. They are not the CRA either. Their place should be in jail. Yes, they should be jailed. This is the fraudulent notice of debt addressed to me. The first notice of debt. I received 2 notice of debt because I ignored the first one. Before I received this notice of debt, I received an email from Service Canada notifying me about CERB Overpayment, and that person wants $2,000. There is no name of the sender or any contact number. When I replied to the email and asked who he or she is, my email bounced. It was marked non-deliverable. I called Tammy McGarry from Service Canada, who requested that I should send the money to P.O. Box 6767, Matane, Quebec. She was the last person communicated with me in 2019. She had been chasing me and demanding that I should pay her $60,000. She called me and even sent me a letter, demanded that I should give her all my banking information and credit cards information. Of course, I did not follow her demand. The automated voicemail, her automated voicemail says, "I'm no longer with the department. This telephone number is no longer monitored." Then I received several telephone calls from Service Canada, but my provider blocked them as spam. Why they do so? Because Service Canada, like the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation, is a politically organized financial crime organization. Their customer service does the same. I almost laughed. Yes, I almost laughed. What department? Service Canada is not a department. This is how they fool you. They want you to believe that they are a department. They want you to believe they are the government. As of January 2020, Service Canada declared it is a federal government. Read Canada's white-collar crimes, political, financial, and corporate crimes. You will understand why they claim they are the government. It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. I received this notice of debt in May 2022. As a former public servant trained in the government administration, have a specialization in government management and leadership, and also a forensic administration, this kind of communication is automatically a fraud. The name of the sender is Employment and Social Development Canada, a phantom organization. It does not exist. The address is room 606875 Heron Road, Ottawa. It is the address of the Ottawa Technology Center, the customer service of Service Canada and the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation. We have 2 Canada Revenue Agencies. Canada Revenue Agencies, which is a public office, and Canada Revenue Agency Corporation, a private firm created in April 2007 by Stephen Harper. It is deceitful and illegal. Here is the most deceitful structure the politicians created illegally. The Minister of National Revenue. Yes, the Minister of National Revenue is the head of both the CRA of the public office and the CRA Corporation, a private firm. This is very, very deceitful and illegal. The law prohibits entities with the same name, let alone it is a public entity. The creation of both organizations, Service Canada and Canada Revenue Agency Corporation, is illegal and unconstitutional. You hear the U.S. deep state. These two organizations are the deep state of Canada, the person of the Canada's deep state, and have been defrauding the taxpayers since their creation in 2007. They have stolen from you since their creation and until today. From everybody, the middle class and low class citizens until today. Once they get the money from you, they keep coming up with schemes to milk more money from you. They all use the name the CRA, never use the corporation. Always the CRA. The CRA is becoming a victim of its own laws because we have bunch of crooked politicians. It is the characteristic of white-collar crimes. Once they get the money from you, they keep coming up with different schemes to milk more money from you. The amount may be small, say $1 or $100, but combined with another million, that's 1 million or 100 millions. What a bunch of crooked. Our Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, created the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation and Service Canada with the purpose to take over the public service, to create a kingdom or a private government at the expense of the government of the taxpayers. They started taking over the logistics first, and then they will branch out. As of mid-2022, Service Canada started branching out with its activity, taking over the roles of immigration and citizenship, processing passport, but still as customer service. It is about the money and taking over the public service. If you have Service Canada to process your passport, there will be two of you, triple, quadruple. They are making money by selling your identities. If your twin commits a crime, they charge you. Look at Service Canada people, the corrupt former government officials from Service Canada. They commit a crime. They use the students' identities to fraud the taxpayers by taking student loan fraudulently. And then they force the students to be responsible for their crime. Why Stephen Harper created the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation to be the customer service of the Canada Revenue Agency, and Service Canada to be the customer service of the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, or later the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada. This creation opens the door for abuse of power, more corruption, thefts, grafts, Ponzi schemes, fraud, and money laundering. The irony is when they do money laundering, they use your identities. After declaring that they are federal government in January 2020, they also declared that their phantom organization, Employment and Social Development Canada, is a department. A department without a physical existence, a department without an address. It is a fraudulent department, or a department whose name they use to fraud you. They keep using this name as a product placement in media communication, in their letters, in their communication to you, in their fraudulent checks. And the funny thing is, Justin Trudeau does not have a department called Employment and Social Development Canada. He does not know about this department but accepted their suggestion. This department does not exist. This is how the deep state works. They want you to think they are the government. Their work is similar to FEMA in the US. Their work is based on political mandates, not based on laws and regulations. Remember, the government works within a paradox of laws. If an organization was created, it should be based on laws and regulations. They confuse you. This is how the deep state works. The people are confusing you. They know you don't know about the government. The politicians do not even know about the government. The ministers do not even know about the departments they lead. Justin Trudeau pointed a finger and called the truckers of the Freedom Convoy terrorists. But his transportation minister, Omar Al-Gabra, is a terrorist member of the Muslim Brotherhood. Justin Trudeau wants the terrorists to have a better representation in the Canadian government. This statement does not match with the policy of hunting down the terrorists. Do you know that the Canadian and the U.S. governments use the taxpayers' money to fund the terrorist groups and their activities within and outside the countries, including the Muslim Brotherhood? The funding of the terrorist groups and their activities are in the Chinese big box of the fiscal budget, and they come in different names. For example, the MK Ultra, a CIA mind control program, they call it Ecological Development Program. The name and the program don't match, do they? The politicians do not make public policy, which is their main job descriptions, but they do not know their job descriptions. They have outsiders to make policy for them, and they just read the ready-made policies in the chamber, which they call the debating chamber. Concerning travel mandate, for example, Omar Al-Garba, the transportation minister, does not know who made the policy. Health Canada did not make it. The Canada Public Health Agency, which is another type of FEMA created in 2003 after the SARS, did not make it. The person who made this travel mandate for Omar Al-Garbra is Jennifer Little from the Transport Canada, whose background is journalism. She's not trained in public policy. The politicians always hire journalists to write their presentations, so Jennifer Little got the positions as policy analyst based on this assignment or due to this assignment. The politicians are hardly being at the office. They go to the office on an ad hoc basis when they're needed or as a part-timer. They spend most of their time outside the office, attend meetings with the stakeholders, travels, attend committee meetings, attend breakfast and lunch meetings with stakeholders, work at their own businesses, visit their constituencies, and attend conferences or seminars. Too often, they are lost or simply lost when they go to the office. When you send a letter to them, they never read your letter. Their political staffs, the administrators or legal assistants do, and reply to you as a personal favor. Then they forge the signature of the minister, make their own using anybody's name, or just copy and paste the minister's signature. If the signature is real, it means the politician signed it with a blindfold. The politician's knowledge is based on one paragraph or two paragraph briefing note their staff prepare for them. This practice is unethical and very unprofessional for the government. It is illegal. It is a Mickey Mouse system of management. No wonder every person can claim he is the government. Anybody can claim he is the Canada Revenue Agency. This reality shows that the politicians are the product of outside thinkers. They don't have their own thought. They just follow the crowd or what is being presented. They are just the puppets. They are not the pipers that call the tune, but the tune played by the outside pipers. The Canada Revenue Agency Corporation never uses the corporation, but only Canada Revenue Agencies. Don't you know that the law prohibits the creation of entities with the same name? It is illegal. This practice was common in the early 1980s in the private sector, and the government prohibits it because the new one often used the name of the old one to conduct criminal activities including fraud. Now the government's name is being used to fraud the citizens because there are two Canada revenue agencies, the public and the private ones. The government does not have the backbone anymore. It does not have people with mental and technical capacity. It does not have people with knowledge and knowledge specialization. Rather, it piles up family members, relatives, friends, and cronies to work in the government without security clearance. There are no more qualifications requirement to meet the job requirements. Rather, the candidate qualifications are met to suit the job requirements. In other words, most jobs in the government are based on crony relationship. The CRA Corporation works as the customer service of the CRA, and Service Canada, through an outsourcing scheme, works as the customer service of the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, or later the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada. Then both use the Ottawa Technology Center to be their customer service. So Service Canada or the Ottawa Technology Center also use the GOES organization, Employment and Social Development Canada. Both are like the deep state of Canada, the open government. You see the Canada.ca website? It is the virtual government of the deep state. There's nothing much in there. They are private companies that claim they are the government. The politicians create private companies to take over the government illegally and unconstitutionally. Service Canada is the one that advised Duclos, the Minister of Family, Children and Social Development Canada at that time, to cut back your pensions and entitlements, but use the name Employment and Social Development Canada, a phantom organization. Duclos doesn't know about this department, Employment and Social Development Canada. He does not even know that this department is a phantom department. He does not even know the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada that he leads, or he is the head of the department. He works at the Parliament Hill and supported by his political staffs, the administrators and legal assistants. The department is in Gatineau. It is like you have the head in one place and the body is in another place. You have to cross the Ottawa River to go to see the body that does not have the head. Service Canada is also the one that proposed Justin Trudeau to have the We Charity to manage the 95 million student grant program, but use the name Employment and Social Development Canada. The We Charity has personal and political ties with Justin Trudeau and his family. Justin Trudeau does not even have the Department of Employment and Social Development Canada. How in the world he agreed to a suggestion from a department that he does not have in his cabinet? How in the world he agreed to a suggestion made by a department that does not exist but in name only? He does not even know this department, does not know his departments. Those who made the suggestion are those who made or designed this notice of debt and all the fraudulent student loan collection statements, letters of garnishment letters and all. By having the We Charity to manage the student grant program, they have the opportunity to cream off the money, or like the other middlemen who give the grant to students, they will charge a fee and make the students to get their own money while the grant money goes to their offshore accounts. The grant money is managed by the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada. All these are made by the corrupt former government officials from the former Department of Human Development or Human Resources and Social Development in Canada. For many years, these people have managed to make money, make millions, live a luxurious lifestyle by defrauding the taxpayers using the students' identities. They are the accomplices of the student loan fraud, while the bank officials, most are from CIBC, are the engineers of the student loan fraud. But notice, all information, often the media use Employment and Social Development Canada. Why? That is the name given by Service Canada or the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation. The media don't know that the Employment and Social Development Canada does not exist, but in name only. This means a fraud. How in the world for years mainstream media have been using the name of an organization, or later in 2020 a department that does not exist? They have been fooled as well. This is one of the characteristics of white-collar crimes. They create an organization in name only, but not physical, and no civic address. What the purpose? To fraud. The structure of the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada is now longer, or has been longer. Before the privatization, you deal directly with the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada. At that time, it was the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada. After the privatization, you do not deal with the department. Rather, you deal with Service Canada, but through the customer service. There are two layers of structure of customer service that you should go through before end up in the department. However, once you face with the customer service, it is a dead end. They never let you pass their desk. Do you ever realize that leaders who utilize customer service are actually cowards? They don't want to face with you, or if they are bad or did a bad thing, they don't want to face with the consequences or do not want to face with any criticism. They let the customer service to face the consequences or be their army to fight with you. Yes, any leader who uses the customer service is a coward. Therefore, before you deal with Service Canada, you must go through the customer service, the Ottawa Technology Center. Service Canada works as a customer service. Although you meet the one in your town or city, they don't serve you. They just take the information and someone else from Timbuktu will serve you, and the person address is a PO box. Sometimes they use their name or not real name. If they give their name, only the initial, but many times they don't give you their full name. Do you know that the government employees, all public servants, must give their full names, positions, ID number, which is not a social insurance number, and civic address? The customer service agents never do. Service Canada and Canada Revenue Agency corporations never do. They hide their identity. After all, they were trained to fraud you. This is the reason the government becomes less effective and less responsive to public problems. Because the customer service wants to do it all, or have to do it all, even though they do not know. So they are they are not a problem solvers, but problem creators. The customer service then charges the government multiple times while double dipping and stealing from you at the same time. The promise that privatization will save the government money or it is a cost efficient, it's just a lie. Just look at the structure. You have two layers of customer service between you and the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada. And there are two layers of customer service between you and the Canada Revenue Agency. So you just go around the circle. They claim the hierarchical government is a hindrance to good governance. Just look at the reality. The hierarchical government with two layers of customer service, people who do everything, or the army of jack of all trades. Who says that this is effective and efficient? This is a politic of colonizing the government, taking over the government by the army of jack of all trades. They let the customer service to fight with you while they engineer schemes to dismantle the departments and agencies at your expenses, taking over the functions, roles and functions. In terms of Service Canada and the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation, it is about taking over the government by first taking over the logistics. As I mentioned, the address 875 Heron Road, Ottawa is the address of the Ottawa Technology Center. The QR code, any person can make it. Just copy and paste. You don't know whose QR code is. Copy and paste is the same as forgery. Copy and paste or forgery has been the common practice of the customer service. It is also the practice of the political staffs. They forge the signature of the politicians or even the signature of the minister. This is a common practice in our government ever since the privatization. It is unethical, it is unprofessional, it is illegal. You have bad government because you have bad people. The politicians create a deep state just to allow their assistants or cronies to access public money, or they also want to take over the government. Any person who competes in the political stage and says, smaller government, get rid of him, he wants to steal from you. Having a deep state is illegal. It is unconstitutional. Why Canadians are clueless about Canada's version of a deep state? Wake up! We have two governments, a real one that was legally and constitutionally established, and one that was created by the politicians, and they do work according to political mandates. In the US, they call it presidential decree. But this is how you can create a civil war. In the past or now, you have the government of the people versus the government of the private crony. The legal one serves those in the government, the real government circle, such as the public servants, the dignitaries, and those in the bureaucratic circle. The illegal one serves those outside, such as the common citizens, which they call customers. There are two government checks. One is issued by the legal government, and the other one is issued by the deep states, the illegal and unconstitutional government. Canada Revenue Agency Corporation and Service Canada, this is illegal. William Baker is the CEO, President and Commissioner of the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation, is also the leader of the open government, the deep state. He wants to become the leader of the state, but is not capable to compete in the political stage or non-political stage. Therefore, through Prime Minister Stephen Harper, he got the position, he got the stage, he got the deep state. Beside him is Muriel Bullerish, one of the accomplices in the student loan fraud. She works at Service Canada as a contractor and came from the former Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada in 2015. She declares her position is integrity investigator. It is like the Biden administration. The politicians are so full of lies that Biden created Ministry of Truth. Why not just telling all politicians to stop lying and speaking the truth? The political phraseology is meant to convey words with wisdom and tact that will not harm others. Use words that bring grace and show compassion, and even more uplifting to a very soul. The politicians do not have the tact and wisdom, that too often their words are like double-edged swords. They show no love and compassion to the citizens from whom they make a living. Their words are like a can of gas poured into a burning fire. An integrity investigator should be a person with integrity. How do you measure integrity when you don't have integrity? How do you know honesty when you are a fraudster? Muriel is a fraudster. They pay a license to operate as an open government with the money they stole from you. Yes, they steal from you to pay for the license. This is illegal. Where is the money go? Any person that allows this creation is a fool. He knows nothing about managing the government, but simply the money, the prestige, and to pursue his own ambition. He is breaking the country apart, or he is destroying the sovereignty. He does not even know about the Constitution. Our Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, takes the party leadership in a hostile manner. He entered the political stage to compete for the state leadership, but to become and create a king with his own kingdom at your expenses. His famous expression is to govern without the government. Abraham Lincoln said the government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. To govern without the government means he is the leader of his own kingdom at the expense of the government. That is your deep state. Unfortunately, the politicians are also involved in the deep state. They engineer its creation. Look at the Minister of National Revenue. She is the leader and the head honcho of the CRA, which is the public office, and the CRA Corporation, a private firm. Notice the bottom address is Mississauga. It is Service Canada address. All Service Canada contractors use a PO box. They never use the name or sometimes initial, but never a full name. The government officials, as I said, always use the full name and civic address. It is a must that the citizens know who they are and where they are. However, payment should be mailed to PO Box 6767 Matane, Quebec, which is to Temimigeri, but make a payment arrangement with the customer service agent. This is not logical. This is a fraud. In the past, the mainstream media often reminded you not to send money to PO Box. However, many businesses, legitimate businesses, even the government, are using PO Boxes because, being a coward, they don't want you to know their exact address. They don't want to know where they are, who they are, and just don't want you to know about them. So they use the PO Box. CIBC, for example, everything is a PO Box, including a PO Box specially used to fraud people, to fraud the students. This is the first bank that warns you about fraud, but also the first bank that involves in the student loan fraud. The CRA corporations, all PO Box. Service Canada, all PO Box. They are not the government. Then the telephone number 1-866-864-5823, or even the other number. It is the number of the Ottawa Technology Center, but when you call this number, the automated voicemail always says Canada Revenue Agency collection line. This is not the CRA. It is the customer service, the Ottawa Technology Center. I call this number anyway just to see if they use the name Employment and Social Development Canada. No, the agent who answered me after a long period of waiting said Canada Revenue Agency. Then he wanted to know why I was calling and asked me for my social insurance number. The customer service agents of the CRA Corporation and Service Canada in particular always answer you using a cellular telephone or a BlackBerry. This allows them to work remotely from anywhere around the world. The most interesting thing is the agent who replied to me when I called at that time was at the beach in Jamaica. Why am I dealing with a person in Jamaica who was at the beach, talk about this notice of death which he did not have in front of him, and should give him my social insurance number? It is foolish. The social insurance number is actually nothing of a secret. You can change it if you forget or if you lose it. However, after the creation of the CRA Corporation and Service Canada, they use your social insurance number for everything, including turning it into an online bank account that you do not have access to it, and even turn it into a credit card that they can make an advance withdrawal while traveling or shopping. You do not have access to this online account. They use this online account for money laundering after opening their bank accounts offshore. As the politicians started traveling out of the country and had opened bank accounts in foreign countries, they are also the beneficiaries of the money laundering activities. When these crooked people, the corrupt former government officials, send the money to their offshore accounts using your social insurance number as the online account, a portion goes to the politicians' offshore accounts. This is why the politicians do not want the police to investigate money laundering. The customer service agents know that your social insurance number is a bank account and there is always money there. Therefore, they always ask for the social insurance number. Even the bank customer service, they always ask for social insurance number. The social insurance number becomes a subject matter, the reference number, internal transfer number, bank account number, holding account for the offshore accounts, and also a credit card number. No one seems to be able to investigate or to stop the money laundering. The key ingredient in stopping money laundering is the bank managers. Yes, said Mary Norris, the senior director at CIBC Ombudsman Office. Your money will never leave your account without the manager's authorization. The money will never leave the country without the manager's authorization. Do the police know about it? They were, or maybe still, are trained by fraudsters. If you receive CERB, ask yourself why you pay it back to Tammy McGarry at P.O. Box 6767, Martinique, Quebec, while the check you receive, if it comes from the CRA Corporation, is from P.O. Box 5000. If it comes from Service Canada under the Employment and Employment Insurance Program, the address is P.O. Box 2000. If you are a public servant, your check comes from the Gatineau, which is the office of the Receiver General of Canada with a civic address, not a P.O. Box. The check you receive, the CERB check you receive, is also different. For the public servant, it is signed by the Receiver General of Canada and the Deputy Receiver General of Canada. If you are the public, the customer of the CRA Corporation, your check is signed by the Receiver General for Canada and the Deputy General for Canada. They are phantom individuals. They are phantom positions. The signatures in the checks, however, are those of the Receiver General and Deputy Receiver General of Canada. It is deceitful. It is illegal. If the CERB you receive is from the Employment Insurance Program, it is from Service Canada. And the signature were chairperson and vice chairperson. They don't exist, but they use the signature of the Director of Operation of the Employment and Social Development Canada, an organization that does not exist. This means the people and the positions don't exist either. This is a white-collar crime. They are creating a phantom department with people and positions that once you accept it, they completely taking over your public office. I know the person at P.O. Box 6767 is Temi Migeri. I met with her and interviewed her while all she wanted from me were my bank accounts and my credit cards numbers. I refused. I said to her when she called, "This is your loan. This is your crime. Deals with it. You deserve to be in jail." I never heard from her since. Then all of a sudden she sent me this notice of debt. She got the customer service agent, the Ottawa Technology Center, sent me this notice, of course, and to the other hundreds of thousands of former students. She is looking for my bank account. She is looking for your bank account. If I fall for this fraud, she will use my banking information and make a direct withdrawal, multiple withdrawals, or even clean up my bank account without my knowledge. They will use an internal memo, which is the practice of the CRA Corporation, to clean up their victims' bank account. The internal memo would say, as has happened to millions of small business operators, RTP, CRA, and your social insurance number online bank account. Without your knowledge and consent, the bank managers who have been partners in money laundering will quickly move your money to the social insurance number online account, which you do not have access to it, and block you from having access to your money. They set up the system, however, that you can make a deposit but will not be able to withdraw. You cannot see your account or update your account record either. When you ask question why you cannot make a withdrawal, the bank representatives or even the manager will tell you the CRA freezes your account. This statement is a lie. The CRA never freezes anyone's account. It is not true. The CRA and even the CRA Corporation never and have no legal authority to freeze anybody's account. Study the law. Even the lawyers do not know this, and hence, since 2007, after the creation of the CRA Corporation, millions of small business operators have been defrauded by these people. Should I say corrupt former government officials who used to work at the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada and those at the CRA Corporation, who are also corrupt former government officials, and all are political appointees, people who come to work in the government through the political parties. They are a bunch of thieves. They are a bunch of robbers. They are fraudsters. These are the people who devise the fraud and pay the bank managers to make the robbery and theft a reality. Your bank managers are partners in this financial crime. According to one of the staffs at Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, CIBC has been involved in financial crime for decades. Once the managers receive the internal memo saying RTP, CRA, and your social insurance number, they quickly remove your money and transfer it to the online social insurance number account. Then, with their authorization, the money is transferred to a certain individual's offshore accounts. Your social insurance number online account is like a drop box for money laundering. So once received my check to Temi Migeri with the payee, the Receiver General for Canada, a phantom person and a phantom position, the money will be internally transferred to Temi's account either within the country or offshore. Muriel and the other accomplices, including the customer service agents, will also make withdrawals without my knowledge either. The bank manager will not admit it unless I take him or her to court. The court will not take my case or dismiss it because of the reputation of these crooked former government officials, or because the bank manager is a person with reputation. The court will dismiss my case. It is unfortunate that the police protect the reputation of the white-collar criminals rather than uplifting their oath to serve and protect the citizens from whom they make a living, and to uphold the law. These former government officials, these corrupt former government officials are criminals. They are white-collar criminals. White-collar criminals are too complex, or white-collar crimes are too complex for the untrained police officers to solve it. I doubt that Canada has judges who have experience in this kind of crime. The Canadian judges are politically appointed. They are more loyal to those who appointed them. They have an IOU to the politicians or former politicians, even though they make a living from the citizens. For once, the police, the RCMP, were and maybe still are trained by a fraudster, a person or a customer service whose job is to deceive, manipulate, rob, or fraud, then lie and deny constantly. This is the backside of the notice of debt. Do you believe the first paragraph? Let me read it to you. The Canada Revenue Agency, CRA in brackets, collects debts on behalf of Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC in brackets. CRA is authorized to withhold income tax refunds or goods and services tax credits to recover defaulted Canada student loans, employment insurance overpayments, as well as other types of debts to the Government of Canada or to a provincial territorial government. Do you believe this statement? This is a lie. This is not the CRA. No students ever sign a loan agreement with the Employment and Social Development Canada, an organization that does not exist. This is not the CRA, but the CRA Corporation. They use the name Canada Revenue Agency, while what they meant here is the Canada Revenue Agency Corporation. Both the CRA Corporation and Service Canada are private organizations. They work together to fraud you, to fraud everyone. Yes, they are politically organized financial crime organizations. Sadly, they are given the authority to manage the nation's logistics. Pay attention to your paycheck. They are not the government checks, but the checks produced by these organizations. For every check you receive, they have crimped off between 30% and 45% for themselves, the fraudsters and the robbers, and off to their offshore accounts. The government works, as I said, within a paradox of laws. Based on what laws that the CRA withholds people income tax or goods and services tax credits to recover defaulted Canada student loans, employment insurance, and other types of debts to the Government of Canada without any paper as the proof. This statement is illegal. The CRA, the real CRA, does not have the legal authority to collect student loan, let alone a private organization that was given the same name as the Canada Revenue Agency, a public sector agency. You have to sign an agreement with the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, or now the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada, to make your student loan payment. If you cannot make the payment, the department helps you with the Repayment Assistance Program. It is not the CRA Corporation or Service Canada to collect student loan. Who authorizes the CRA Corporation to make student loan collection on behalf of Employment and Social Development Canada, which does not exist, and based on what law that they do so? Don't you find it funny? The front page says Notice of Debt of CERB, but the back side says student loan. This is a fraud. No way in the loan agreement form says it is an agreement between the student and Employment and Social Development Canada. Go back and read your student loan agreement form. There is no Employment and Social Development Canada. What a bunch of crooked people. White-collar criminals are very smooth in their talk and language. They use phraseology intended to deceive, manipulate, and rob or fraud. They never want to admit that they are robbing or defrauding you. They are forcing you to communicate with their phantom organization and send you your payment to a phantom individual, but the money is intended for a certain individual works at Service Canada. Tammy McGarry works at Service Canada. The one who sent this notice of debt is the Ottawa Technology Center. They don't know that they are actually being trained and doing fraud. You see, they are just agents paid to commit fraud. But notice at the very bottom, it requires to make payment online or by sending a check or money order payable to the Receiver General for Canada, and must include the remittance slip provided, but the address is P.O. Box 6767, Matane, Quebec. The Receiver General for Canada is a phantom position and a phantom person. The address is that of Tammy McGarry. There is no the remittance slip either. Why the remittance slip? That is the practice of the CRA Corporation to demand the victims or the taxpayers to pay taxes using a remittance slip. The remittance slip is intended for the internal transfer and to authorize the agent, bank agents, or the manager to transfer the money received to a certain offshore accounts via your bank account, and your social insurance number online bank account, which you do not have access. This notice of debt is a fraud. Because I ignored the first notice of debt from Tammy McGarry, who has moved out of Service Canada, as she said in her voicemail, came another second notice of debt. This one is from Muriel Bullers, who is also a contractor at Service Canada, but claims she is an integrity investigator at Service Canada and at Open Government, or the Deep State. This fraudulent notice of debt is combined with Canada's student loan program, which no student ever signed for such a loan. I don't have a student loan. My student loan record has been $0 as of July 2nd, 2009. I never pay any attention to this student loan collection because I don't have a student loan. These people are the ones, the accomplices of the bank officials who engineer the scheme to use the students' identities to take student loans fraudulently, beginning in the early 1990s when CIBC started lobbying the politicians to privatize the student loans. They are the accomplices. The bank officials are the engineers of the student loan fraud, and they are these corrupt former government officials are the accomplices who used to work at the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada. So this is their loan. Now the payment is to be made by mail and sent to Pacific P.O. Box 1133, Matane, Quebec. If you go to Canada.ca, the virtual website of the deep state, there is the Pacific. This is meant for the people from Surface Canada. In the previous slide, I forgot to mention that in the privacy section at the back side of the notice of debt, it does mention Surface Canada written on the website, https star www, and at the end it says Q007. This means this notice of debt comes from Surface Canada. It was designed by people or the contractors of Service Canada, and the money is for them. In this case, the money is, in my case, for Tammy Migary, the first one, and the second one is for Muriel Bullerish. In this notice of debt, Muriel wants $1,000. There is an explanation that I made a payment of student loan $993.62. This is a portion of my tax refunds that they stole. They have stolen all my tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits since 2013 without any communication or anything. All just disappeared without a trace. And they have stolen all the tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits of the 650,000 students since 2013 without a trace. All just disappeared. The remaining of my tax refund was given to the bank official Chris Cummings and Leslie Wilson from the Ontario Credit Collection, who used to work at the Ontario Ministry of Training, College and University, and also at the Ontario Ministry of Finance. It is why that sometimes when the Ottawa Technology Center agents call, they always use Ontario Ministry of Finance. She was a political staff. It is a theft. It is a fraud. It is robbery. I did see all the money transferred electronically without my agreement and knowledge to the bank, and the bank managers did the splitting as per the instruction of people from the CRA Corporation or Service Canada. But I don't have access to those social insurance number online account. By the way, if you go to CIBC website, there is still mentioned student loan, and they call it student line of credit. They still use, CIBC still use the students' identities to take student loan fraudulently, while the banks do not have any more involvement in student loans since 2006 when the government took over the student loan program. Before the second notice of debt arrived, I did call the customer service. I gave him the fact that the notice of debt is a fraud. I pointed to him. You claim the sender is Employment and Social Development Canada, but the address is the Ottawa Technology Center. He said Employment and Social Development Canada does not have an address. They don't exist. Because it does not exist, they use the address of the customer service, the Ottawa Technology Center. Then I said, you want me to write a check to the Receiver General for Canada who does not exist, but the payment goes to Tammy Migary at P.O. Box 6767 in Matane, Quebec. This is a fraud. His reply was, if you find it a fraud, don't reply, just ignore it. This is one of the customer service agents who knows that they are being hired to commit a fraud, and he admitted it. After receiving the second notice of debt, I called again, and the voicemail said Canada Revenue Agency collection line, or which is the Ottawa Technology Center. I said to the agent, you send me a notice of debt and to write a check to the Receiver General for Canada, who does not exist, but the payment is addressed to Pacific, and it is intended for Muriel Bullerish at P.O. Box 1133, Matane, Quebec. There will be many Pacific. Once they put it in the website, there will be many Pacific. So every Pacific will come to you and chase you for this notice of debt. Don't you know that this is a fraud? I asked him. There's also my income tax refund taken. I'm paying Muriel Bullers. I don't have a student loan and I have the proof for that. This is a fraud. You go and find a job that teaches you to do work honestly rather than working for the fraudsters. He just said thank you. The backside is just the same as Temi Migeri's, except I'm instructor to send the payment by mail to Pacific at P.O. Box 1133, Matane, Quebec. This is a fraud. This is a white-collar crime. This is a crime that the police and the lawyers are not familiar with. We, the victims, must stop them before they grow larger and take over the entire public service. Don't forget, get this book, Canada's White-Collar Crimes, Political, Financial, and Corporate Crimes. Read it through and you will understand how for years they have defrauded you. They do money laundering using your identities. Again, get this book, Canada's White-Collar Crimes, Political, Financial, and Corporate Crimes.